Hey, how's it going, do-it-yourselfers? Do you have badly worn out headlights that are real foggy and hazy, as is the case on this car? And you're interested in doing a complete restoration and a repair that lasts long and not just cleaning them up so that you don't have to repeat this process in a few months or so? Well, you're in luck, because today I'm going to show you exactly how you can turn these old foggy headlights into these beautiful brand new looking headlights that you see right now. I'm going to show you how you can do this using some basic products like masking tape and sanding paper, but most important of all, a new type of clear coat that I've yet to see anyone use on YouTube. Now, 2 years ago, I did do one of these videos where I showed you how you can restore headlights using some clear coat. However, in that video, I used some 1K clear coat that everyone else is using on YouTube to do these restorations. So I'm hoping today, by using these newer clear coats, we get a better result, but more important than that, a much longer lasting repair. And at the end of this video, I will also answer some of your common questions like how coarse or how fine of a sandpaper you can get away with, should you apply wax to your headlights after you're done, or if you should use some clear plastic primer before you apply your clear coat, amongst some other questions that people ask. So go ahead and pull up a chair and watch this video all the way to the end. And if you already have pulled up the chair, go ahead and grab a beer, because today we're gonna get drunk. Learn stuff. Alright, so the reason you might have yellowing or hazy headlights is due to the damage to the UV layer or the clear coat that's sprayed on these headlights when they come out of the factory. Actually, this UV protective layer on this headlight is so bad, you can actually see me chip it off with my fingernails. And when this layer starts breaking down, you get this hazy look, which is what we got going on here. And if you have yellowing headlights, that's simply the dirt that's normally on the roads that you drive on, and which is flying at your headlights at 70 miles per hour and sticking to that broken down UV protective layer and giving your headlight that yellowish or brownish color. Now, as a temporary fix, some people like to use a polisher like this and some rubbing compound to polish their headlight and bring back some shine to it. But that's simply a temporary fix and it won't last long, and you're going to be back to square one in no time. In order to permanently restore this headlight, we first need to remove the remnants of the UV protective layer we still have on this headlight and then apply our own. Alright, so the first step when you're about to spray anything is to make sure that it's completely clean. So go ahead and grab yourself a clean bucket of water and add some good old dish soap to it. And yes, you can use dish soap without anything to worry about, because not only will dish soap help us clean this headlight, but it will also remove any grease or wax that might be still on this headlight as a result of someone applying wax to the body of this car. And as you may know, grease or wax is the #1 destroyer of any paint job, so you want to make sure you remove that completely. So next, with a microfiber towel or a microfiber sponge, you want to thoroughly clean your headlights. Make sure you get in every nook and cranny and that it's completely clean. And also, in order to gain more access, you can always open your hood as well. Also, you should go without saying that if you're doing on a car where removing the headlight is not super difficult, it's always easier if you remove the headlight from the car and do everything outside. But that's simply not the case for this Audi. I believe in order to remove the headlight, the whole front bumper cover needs to be removed. I'm simply not going to do that, and most of the times you should be able to get away without removing the headlight from the car. Alright, next you get yourself a clean bucket of water, and next, with a new clean microfiber towel or sponge, you want to thoroughly wash down your headlights and the surrounding panels. Now, you don't necessarily have to use microfiber towels on these, but if you use just a regular sponge, you run the risk of putting some very minor scratches in the adjacent panels. So if you can help it, use these microfiber towels. And as always, if you want to know where I get these microfiber towels for cheap, or in fact any other products or tools I use in this video, I'll put links to where you can find them for cheap down below in the description box, so don't be afraid to click on them and check them out. Alright, next we're about to start sanding off this old protective layer that's on this headlight. But before we start doing that, it's very important that you use some masking tape and mask off all around your headlight. Because if you don't do that, you're pretty much guaranteed to put some scratches in the adjacent panels to your headlight. And if they're deep enough, they're going to permanently damage the paint, and you don't want to do that. And in fact, here's an example that you can see on the screen right now where someone was trying to restore their headlight, but they did not mask around their headlight and accidentally put some scratches on the adjacent panels. When I find that 1 inch or 1.5 inch masking tape is great for this job, and you want to preferably use automotive masking tape and not the masking tape you buy from Home Depot. Again, link in the description box down below. Now when putting on masking tape, it's very important that you get between your headlight and the adjacent panels. Do not put the masking tape on the headlight under any circumstances. No matter how tight the spot is, you have to squeeze it in there. Otherwise, at the end of the job, when you go to peel your masking tape off, you're gonna peel off some clear coat with it. That's gonna ruin the paint job, and you're gonna have to do everything all over again. Alrighty, so here's a look at what we have on the passenger side, and here's a look at what we have on the driver's side. And now, it's time to start sanding these headlights. Now, as far as what grit sandpaper you need to use, that's going to depend on how badly the UV protective layer on your headlight is damaged. If it's badly or severely damaged, you need to use a more coarse sandpaper at first. Now you got to keep in mind your clear coat can cover or hide 800 grit sand scratches and finer. So if you're going to use more coarse sandpaper like this 600 grit sandpaper that I have here, afterwards you're going to need to go over all the scratches you put on your headlight with the 600 grit sandpaper with an 800 grit sandpaper. Now some people like to use even finer sandpaper as their final sandpaper, like this 1500 grit, very fine sandpaper you see here. And that's fine. Actually, when you spray clear coat over a fine sand scratch like the 1500 sand scratch, the odds are that the clear coat will go on there smoother and you'll have a smoother finish. But on the other hand, if you spray clear coat over, let's say, an 800 grit sandpaper, the odds are that it will stick better to your headlight and you will have less of a chance of your clear coat chipping off your headlight again. But again, the trade-off is that the clear coat may not go as smooth on an 800 grit sand scratch than it would on a 1500 grit sand scratch. But you can always remedy that afterwards by polishing, which I will show you or talk about at the end of this video. And as I mentioned, I'm going to be wet sanding this headlight with this 600 grit sandpaper. And that's because I consider the damage on this headlight to be about a medium to maybe a severe case. And in order to do this, I'm going to be using this soft sanding block. And these soft blocks work great with these standard size 9 by 11 inch sandpapers. And that's because if you were to cut these in half, each half would fit perfectly around these sand blocks. That way you won't waste any sandpaper. And we're going to be wet sanding these headlights, which simply means we're going to be using water with our sanding block. And you're going to be spending a good amount of time on these headlights, sanding them down. You gotta have to make sure you're very thorough and that you get all the flaky remnants of the old clear coat or UV protection layer that's on these headlights off. And every so often you need to check your work, so either grab a microfiber towel or one of these soft blocks and wipe down the area. Make sure you have a smooth surface. And here's a close shot of what we have. I've been working on the right side, and as you can see, it's much smoother when compared to the left side of this headlight. But if you look very closely towards the top of this headlight, there are some deeper chips that I was not able to get with my 600 grit sandpaper. So in order to get those in that area alone, I'm just gonna swap over to this 400 grit sandpaper you see here. All right, hopefully this 400 grit sandpaper will make a quick meal of these. Alrighty, and here's what we have after we use some 400 grit sandpaper in this area. As you can see, we were able to get rid of the deeper chips and it's all smooth now. So now we can go back to our 600 grit sandpaper and finish up the rest of the headlight. Also, another very important tip I can give you is that to get every corner of your headlight. So you probably need to do this by hand, but get your sandpaper underneath and around your headlight and get every corner and edge on your headlight well sanded. Because if you don't, this is where your new clear coat is going to start peeling from, and you don't want that to happen. Alright, so I'll fast forward through the rest of the sanding of this headlight with the 600 grit sandpaper, but I expect to spend about 5 to 15 minutes sanding down your headlight depending on how badly damaged it is. Alrighty, and here's what we have right now after going over this headlight with some 600 grit sandpaper. Everything is smooth to the touch, no more chipping UV protective layer or clear coat, so we can go on to our 800 grit sandpaper now. Alright, you know what? I just realized I do not have any 800 grit sandpaper, but I do have some 1000 grit sandpaper. So this is what I'm going to use as my final sandpaper before I start spraying clear coat. And again, you can go all the way up to 1500 grit sandpaper before your clear coat, but you don't want to jump from 600 grit to 1500 grit. You want to go 600 to 1000 to 1500, And even at that, you want to make sure you're very thorough with 1000 grit over 600 grit. And again, expect to spend about 10 minutes sanding each headlight down with 1000 grit or your final grit sandpaper. Also, I forgot to mention that in order to sand these headlights down, you're going to need a lot of elbow grease. Now, if you don't know what elbow grease is, it basically goes into the area where you're sanding or working on. I'll put a link to where you can find some for cheap in the description box, so you can also Google it and get you some that way. I can't believe people don't know what elbow grease is. Alrighty, and here's what we have after we went over our headlight with some 1000 grit sandpaper. I don't know if it looks any different on camera, but it does feel smoother to the touch, that's for sure. Here again, you can compare it to the driver's side that is yet to be sanded. Alrighty, so before we start spraying, we need to completely clean down our repair area. So once more, get yourself a clean bucket of water and thoroughly wash down the repair area. And next, it's very important that your headlight is completely dry. So get yourself another microfiber towel and completely dry it off, but not just that. If you have access to compressed air, go ahead and use that to remove moisture or water that might be underneath or around your headlight. And next, we're gonna start masking off our car. And I suggest you mask off as much of your car as you can, because the spray cans we're going to use are pretty strong and you can have overspray all over your car. And for masking, I like to use these 10 by 20 feet plastic drop cloths. I find that these make my life a lot easier. Yep, you just open these up, throw them over your car, and that's it. And then you get yourself a razor blade and simply cut around your headlight. And then you simply tape it up. And the clear coat we're going to be using today is going to be this 2K clear coat. And the difference between a 2K clear coat and a 1K clear coat, which is the clear coat everybody else is using on YouTube and which you can buy at your local auto parts store, is that these clear coats come with their own hardener at the bottom, which you can mix with the clear coat inside here right before you start spraying. And basically what this hardener does is it will harden the clear coat over time, which will help your clear coat last a lot longer. Also, it will be much more chip resistant if you were to use a 1K clear coat. Again, I put a link to these in the description box for those of you that are interested. But what you'll need to do next is to first shake this can for 2 minutes straight. Next, you need to remove this red cap from up top, put it on the bottom of the can like this, lay the can on the ground and press down like that. And now the hardener is mixed with the clear coat. And once again, we'll shake it for 2 minutes. And we're gonna put 3 coats of this on each headlight. We're gonna do 1 light coat and 2 medium coats. And by light and medium coat, basically you just simply move faster for a light coat and then just move a little bit slower for a medium coat. And it's always good practice when you're spraying with a can to first start moving your hand, then start spraying. Otherwise, you end up leaving a blob of paint or clear coat in this case where you start. So you wanna spray like this and not like this. Here you can see it better this way. Also, when you're using these cans, you want to spray on something before you start spraying on your panel so you get rid of the splatter. See, now it sprays fine. Also, before I forget, you want to make sure you spray with 50% overlap. So you spray once, then you come down 50%, and then you spray your second coat. Also, between each coat, it's very important that you shake your can.
Oh yeah, and you want to wear one of these and work in a well-ventilated area.
Alrighty, here's our first coat. And here's the driver's side. So here's how things look after our first run. Pretty orange peely and nothing to celebrate about, but that's pretty normal. It'll look much better after the second and third coat. Alrighty, now we just wait 10 minutes before applying our second coat. 10 minutes later, and it's time for our second pass, and we're gonna put this a little bit heavier. And now the driver's side. And here's how things look after our second coat. It's already looking pretty nice and shiny. Also, I should mention that with these spray cans, the orange peel, as you can hopefully see, is not super bad either. And now it's time for our third and final pass. Alrighty, so here's how things look after our third pass. So now I'm just gonna wait about 2 hours and then very carefully start removing the tape around our headlights and then remove this plastic sheet and give you guys a final look. Alright, it's been a few hours and now we're ready to remove our plastic sheet and the masking tape around our headlights. Just be very careful as this clear coat is not cured yet. And if you come into contact with it, you're gonna damage the finish. So I'm actually again gonna use a razor blade and cut around our headlight. And now we can remove this plastic sheet. Oh, and when you're pulling off masking tape from around your headlight, make sure you pull away from your headlight. That way, if there is any clear coat sticking to the edge of your masking tape, it just peels off from there. Otherwise, if you were to pull this off this way, the clear coat may peel back and be removed from your headlight, and that's not gonna look good. And here's a final look. This is the passenger side, and here's a look at the driver's side. And as you can tell, there's quite a bit of difference from the way these headlights look now compared to how they looked before we got started. All right, so there's that. Now on to answering some of your common questions. So if you end up getting a lot of orange peel on your headlight, you wanna make sure you wait at least a week before you wet sand and then polish it. And you wanna use either 1500 grit or preferably a 2000 grit sandpaper. And after you're done wet sanding, make sure you do not use an electric buffer, but rather that you buff it by hand using a microfiber towel. Because there's a high probability that you will burn through the clear coat if you use an electrical polisher. And another question that I got a lot was that how long you need to wait before you can drive your car. Well, if you usually leave your car overnight, given that it's not very cold where you're doing this job, you should be okay driving in the next day. You might get some minor dirt and debris stuck to your clear coat, but that's just on the surface and you can get rid of that after you polish your clear coat in a week or so. If you could wax your headlights, sure, you can wax your headlights, but after you do this job, you need to wait at least a month before you put wax on it, because again, the clear coat is curing and it needs to breathe to cure. If you put wax on it, it's not gonna be able to breathe and cure properly. And last but not least, if you should use some clear plastic primer before you apply your clear coat on your headlights. Now, I've never used one of these and I've never had a problem. You can use it if you want, but you run the risk of running into compatibility issues between your primer and your clear coat. Now, generally speaking, plastic does need primer before you spray base coat or clear coat on it, but there's many different types of plastic. What they mean usually when they say plastic needs primer, they're talking about these plastic bumper covers and other plastic parts that might be on your car that you're going to paint or spray. These headlights, they don't really have adhesion issues. You can spray clear coat on them and it will stick to them just fine. Now, something you want to keep in mind is that these 2K clear coats have a pot life of 48 hours after you mix the hardener with the clear coat. So if, for example, you have clear coat damage on other panels on your car, or maybe you need to paint a panel on your vehicle, go ahead and do the prep work for all the panels and then start spraying the clear coat on all of them at the same time. And if you don't know how to do any of those repairs, well, you're in luck once more, because I have videos showing you exactly how you can do that, of which I put links to on this side of the screen. So go ahead and binge watch them. You'll learn a lot and probably save a lot of money as well. So that's it. Hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, give it a thumbs up, subscribe for more, and I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.